Hey y'all, if you are new to my channel, this is Kiana Talks Ball. Right now I am going over the Denver versus Chicago Bulls game. It was a good loss to me. You know, some people are gonna look at the odds of it. I mean, this is a game that we definitely should have won, considering that Chicago should be dog tired after having a double overtime at Utah that they lost. But Chicago honestly played the opposite. At least their bench did. Their starters didn't play slow, but their bench was the unit that really took off the pace of the game. And it took time for Denver to catch up and say, okay, we need to match their energy. So Denver loses the game 130 to 127. Let's see here. First quarter, Peyton Watson started with a 3, which was very good to see. I'm always a fan of Peyton getting involved offensively. We know how dominant he is defensively, and he had some really good blocks this game. And I thought he did a good job staying stuck to Josh Giddey for, however long he could, because it is Josh Giddey. At the end of the day, Josh Giddey ain't no scrub. He could play, okay? So I'm not mad at Peyton's defense on Josh Giddey. I do feel like it is better than what it would be if Chris was in the game. Also, this is their second game with no Chris Brown. And you could tell because even though I think Peyton did well for what he could on defense, Peyton has had a stint. Even though Denver has played really well these last couple games, Peyton seems to have had a stint of just not being able to make those fast break layups, that you would usually expect Chris to make. And I just think like the closer he gets to the basket, he just thinks too much. Usually when you watch Peyton make a fast break, layup, dunk, whatever, he likes to, get his Euro step together, get himself at the best angle to make that layup or make that dunk. But I feel like the last couple of times he's just like too much in his head when he is going for a fast break field goal. So much though that we know he's not scared of contact defensively, but it's not that he's scared, but you can definitely tell the contact or the thought of potential contact is on his mind the closer that he gets to the basket. And you just got to focus on your target. You literally have to focus on the rim and focus on the goal of what you're trying to do when you're going for these fast break points. Those are two things that Chris and even Julian Strawther are really good at. Julian, yes, you want him to knock down them threes, boy. You want Julian to make his shots, to make his threes, and just not get a foul. And Julian hasn't had the best offensive possessions for the time he's been given. Julian has basically moved to like the third string. Spencer has kind of moved to the second string because of his defense. I love Spencer. I hope for what he can contribute offensively, it ain't gotta be much, but it would be nice if it is something. But I ain't gonna get too greedy with that. So yeah, even with Julian, he's really good at keeping his eyes on the basket when he is attacking. And that's just something, I'm not expecting much from Peyton. 10 points a game would be great. I think he had 12 last game. And just 10 points, 8 to 10 points just off of his own shot creation. You know what I'm saying? I hope somewhere down the line they could, run a play or two for him just so that he could feel comfortable offensively instead of just every time the ball is in his hands, where's Nikola Jokic? And it's really just his responsibility to pass it, So hopefully, somewhere down the line they can get him involved. Speaking of getting involved, going back to how fast Chicago was, this is a game that I wish Duran played in, just because when the pace is too fast for Val, Yoke could catch up, and at times I feel like maybe either in the third quarter or the second half of the second quarter, trying to look at my notes. All right, I think it was the second half of the second quarter where Yoke was turning up the pace. It's like, okay, we got to match them, and they actually did in the second half, like 1 point ahead of them, for turning up the pace and trying to match their energy. But I feel that, I don't know, if it would have mattered too much. I don't know if, Duran would have been like a -10 or something like that. But just for someone who is the size of a center, he's listed as a forward, but he's taller than Aaron. He's 2 inches taller than Aaron, and Aaron is usually their backup center, if not Val. You know what I'm saying? So this is one of them games that for the youth, for the Energy, Chicago is a young team. With their youth, with their energy, I would have liked to see what Duran would have looked like in this game if you're going to take Val out, because he's losing the ball, or he's not getting the rebounds, or he's not getting the putbacks or the floaters that you're used to. Jamal, let's see. So I talked about Peyton. I also think Aaron was a +18. Aaron has been just like, he's usually somewhere a plus around 20 or above. He's just been great this season. He started off on a freaking heater, and he hasn't really slowed down. I feel like oftentimes when AG was in the game, he controlled the pace of the game, especially when they needed to turn up the pace, and he was the one dribbling the ball up. The first quarter and a half, it was just, I understand Jamal needs to conserve his energy. I understand the starters need to conserve their energy. But it was just, once that second unit came in, it was just a lot of walking the ball up and just not even trying to meet Chicago's energy. Which is like, I get it, you want to play your game, but you can't let the defense get comfortable. And I felt like in that second half, in the first half of the second quarter, Denver was letting their defense get really comfortable. But for the most part, Jamal played great. For the most part, Jamal truly played great. He mentioned in his post-game interview, I think it was the turnover that he had the last 2 minutes, and he meant to throw it. Where is it at? Oh yeah, he makes a pass in traffic. I think it was going to Yoke. It wasn't at the top of the key. It was a little bit closer to the paint, and there's more defenders down there. And I think Vu got a piece of it, and then Desemu, I hope I pronounce his name right. But you may know who I'm talking about. He just completely took off with it, and I think that's what kind of sealed the deal for them. But I feel like Jamal was really great in the second half. The thing about Denver's defense is that it's miles ahead what it was last year, but there's still instances of them not communicating on who's covering what man or what zone, or somebody is over-rotated. So what Chicago is doing all game is really, it's not really that complicated. But because they executed it so well, it's just hard, so well and so quick, it's hard for Denver to keep up. So, I mean, all they were doing, if it were the first string, it's just Nikola Vucevic, setting a screen for Josh Giddey getting over the screen, and just really seeing who's open, penetrating the paint, seeing if the defense collapse on him or not. And if they do, he just passes it out to somebody who's open. And it's just a constant cycle of passing and penetrating, passing and penetrating, passing and penetrating. Do you have it? Do you have a lane? Do you have a space to make a midi? That was really their game all night. Whether it was Vu setting a screen for Josh Giddey, or if it were the second string, I think Jalen Smith setting a screen for Decimu, or anybody else. And Jalen Green. No, not Jesus Christ. Jalen Smith. Is it Jalen Smith? Child, it's so many Jalens in the league. Give me a break. Yeah, Jalen Smith. That boy was killing us. Okay? That goddamn Jalen Smith and Javon Carter. I don't know what's up with Javon, but it's like every time we play him, he just want to go off. Javon, I'm gonna need you to chill out, respectfully. But Javon made a lot of, he was 50% from 3, 5 of 10. And oftentimes he's just given a lot of space because Jamal or whoever was in that corner guarding him, whoever's guarding him, period, but most of the time it was Jamal, is kind of over rotated to where the ball is. So Denver's defense, they don't do a great job collectively of splitting their defense between, or splitting their attention, their focus between their man or whatever zone they're guarding and whoever has the ball, you know? At a certain point, if you have a guy going off on a heater, you got to be more concerned with making sure he doesn't get the ball, or at least making sure he doesn't get the ball comfortably than wherever the ball is at the moment. And you do that, again, splitting your time. You position yourself to where you can see your man within your zone, and the ball, wherever the ball is, in both of your peripherals. If you're in zone, you may not, you know, when you're in zone 2-3, 3-2, whatever, you really have two zones, that the two nearest zones closest to you are the zones that you're responsible for. So you may not feel like you have to be fast, you have to be agile, and you have to be ready to commit to whatever direction the ball goes in. Now, if you're on weak side, the issue is when you're over rotated to where the ball is. And with Chicago just executing ball movements so well, if you're too over rotated to where the ball was, you're not going to have time to get back to the zone or the person that you're covering by the time, you know, they get that shot off. And that happened a lot of times with Javon Carter. Like, they were too over rotated on the weak side, and by the time the ball got on his side and in his hands, they didn't have enough time to close out. I want to say it's the same thing with Jalen. Again, it was just a constant cycle of pass, dribble handoff, pass, penetrate. If you ain't got nothing, pass it back out. Or if you do have something, but you just see somebody wide open, pass it back out. And because like that second string was a group of really great shooters, it's like, hell, I'm gonna just pass it out. Because let's see. It says Chicago shot 36% from 3, child. I feel like more. It feel like more. But what's it called? Who was it? Herder, his threes were killing us. Who was it? Vucevic. Child, he went 2 for 8 from 3. And the 3 that he made at the end of the game was kind of the deal sealer. Yeah. Was kind of the deal sealer in my book. From then, you know, Denver, they were able to get some field goals, but they were playing the foul game and weren't able to make their last field goal of the game. Let's see here. let's see here. Oh yeah. So the last couple games, Tim Hardaway has been great for us, right? But this just was not the Tim Hardaway game. But this was surely the Cam Johnson game, right? So we finally got our offensive Cam Johnson game. And, you know, a lot of people have been critical of Cam Johnson. For me, I was just like, okay, if he's still shooting like this when we get into December, then it's a problem. Then, okay, ring the alarms. But we're at, today's the 18th, but the game was on the 17th. He finally has the Cam Johnson game that we've been waiting for. And honestly, y'all, it's really only going to get better. So I'm very happy for him in that aspect. I wish they could have got the win for him. He was a plus 13. Yoke, I thought Yoke had a great game. Honestly, he turned on the Jets a little bit later, but you know, better late than never. And the issue with Yoke is that he played 38 and a half, a little bit over 38 and a half minutes, which is not good. Performance itself was great. Triple double, you know, what was it? Yeah, a 36-point triple double. Same for Jamal. 34-point double double. He got 11 rebounds. Jamal had some really good rebounds. But both Yoke and Jamal played over 38 minutes. And that's just not what you want. You want them to play under 35. But as it's probably been told, if you've been watching reviews, you know, the Chicago bench outscored us like, what, 66-9. Again, this was not the Tim Hardaway game. This was not the Jonas Valanciunas game. This was not the Bruce Brown game, even though I did appreciate Bruce Brown's offensive efforts. Jalen Pickett, he made a three. He made a three that was big for the first time he came into the game. And I enjoyed watching Jalen on defense. But Jalen Pickett had some moments where he also took his eyes off his man and took his eyes off his zone and basically just kind of let whoever he was covering wide open, and they were just able to give them the ball for like an easy layup. I think that happened like twice. And of course had a great game. Like I said, he sets the pace. They were not trying to, in the third quarter, bro, they were not trying to give Denver fouls. And DA got a tech because it's just like, you gonna watch these dudes. You gonna watch these dudes basically jump us and butcher us and whack us like a mole in the paint for the last three possessions of ours. But Yoke had that weak foul on Jalen Smith, and you're gonna call that? So it's like, and then Aaron was getting fouled like hell. He wasn't getting like any foul calls with foul calls that he usually gets when he's making those layups under the basket. The rest were not trying to give that to him. And they really, in the third quarter, were not trying to give Denver like any fouls at all. And, but like I said, it was like a series of no calls on Chicago. And then you're going to call like a foul and a weak bump on Yoke to Jalen Smith, and he got the and one. So DA got a tech for that, and I was glad. I was kind of glad to watch him get a tech because it's like, yeah, stand up for your players. Overall, like I'm not mad at the loss. I think this will make for great film. I think it's just something great to look back on. You know, honestly, Denver, they had everything on their side to win this game, but they had everything on their side before the game to win it. And then Chicago just had everything on their side in the game to actually win it. So I think it's a great reflection game for the team. And I'm interested to see what happens forward. Next game, Pelicans. I hope they're hungry when they play the Pelicans. I hope they don't. I'm not sure if it's at Denver. I think it's in New Orleans. I hope they just don't get comfortable and complacent and feel like That's just a game they're supposed to win. Because it's New Orleans, Denver has a habit of getting too freaking comfortable, bro. They have a habit of getting too freaking comfortable and not taking teams seriously. And then next thing you know, headline the next day is what's wrong with the Denver Nuggets because they lost to this piss poor team. And don't get me wrong, you know, despite the record, I actually like the New Orleans Pelicans. I love me some Derek Queen. He's a Terp alumni just like me. So I love what he's doing. I love how he's figuring out his game. I love how he's like a little baby yolk in himself. But yeah, they're just not good right now. But I think they do have potential once they could figure out their flow. I just don't want Denver to go there and get comfortable like they usually do, not take teams seriously like they usually do, then have to pick up the pace later on like they usually do, and then get in crunch time to a team that they should be beating like they usually do, and may or may not come out with the win. So we'll see. I'll be back. And let me know what you thought on the game. What do you think should have changed? Who do you think, you know, played great? Who do you think didn't? And why? Give me your thoughts down below, and I will see y'all after the New Orleans game. Peace.